Hello. All right, I'll give it a few minutes. I don't know if people thought it was going to be at 9 tonight, but we'll give it a few minutes. And then we'll start this. Go to the comments. All right. I guess we can start it, and then if anybody needs to, they can replay. It is like into the first 3 minutes. It did not record. I guess it was still recording the News Nation. So
trash, and they were able to pull something out of there that they were able to test and make a comparison that led them to believe that Bryan Kohberger was connected to this crime.
Joining right now, a very special guest. She is a DNA genius. It's Cece Moore, Chief Genetic Genealogist at Parabon Nanolabs. Cece, this is what I'm understanding. Out of all of that, literally a bloodbath at the scene, there may be more, and I suspect there will be, Cece, but one bit of DNA that was found is just in the snap on the sheath of that knife, that folds over the knife and you snap it shut. DNA was found there. Now explain to me how that correlates to DNA found in the Pennsylvania Kohberger family home from the father. Explain it.
Now, we don't know exactly what type of DNA was on that snap, but it was most likely touch DNA. They would have taken that touch DNA, which might have only been a few skin cells, sent it to the Idaho Crime Lab, and extracted that, created a genetic profile. So they have a genetic profile made up of 20 genetic markers. Then when they did the trash pull from the family home in Pennsylvania, they wouldn't have known whose DNA exactly they were getting, right? Because there's multiple people in that house. They could tell that it was a male. And when they tested it, it wasn't the same DNA that was on the snap, but it was determined to be the father of the person whose DNA was on the snap. That's a really straightforward comparison. That is a standard fraternity comparison that has been accepted in courts for decades. So this is really straightforward and really high confidence.
Okay, Cece, hit me with the numbers that we discussed. The DNA exactitude is 99.9998%. But you threw a number at me the other day, 1 in 300 trillion, some crazy number, specificity like that.
That was just an example of what we hear in courts. When they go into court, they often use an astronomical number like that to specify that this is the one and only person on Earth who could have contributed this DNA.
Good.
We can explore.
They do heaven. The only person on Earth that supplied that DNA is the father of the killer. Wow. So my question is going to be, and don't think it cannot be done, is how will a wily defense attorney, think Johnnie Cochran, come in and try to crack the state's case wide open? Can it be done? Stay with us.
Well, stay with us. Nope. We're going to fast forward you. Hello to anybody that's coming in. I know it's probably fairly early, but this is like the quietest time right now for me until late tonight. So I figured I would just do it now. I probably could go faster than this. Oh, no, I go too fast.
Actions to a small group of
these 4 beautiful students' families are enduring. I mean, you spend your whole life trying to help your children raise them, take care of them, love them, make enough money to send them away to college to give them a better life. And then this, and then suddenly they're not there for Christmas or New Year's, and it starts sinking in. They're never coming home. And then you see the evidence as it unfolds and that probable cause affidavit. Guys, so much has been happening, and we hear that there is a suggestion that a neighbor security cam actually caught whimpering and a thud possibly. And when the parents hear that, it's got.
And no, that's not the audio that's going around. Just thought I would bring that out. It is in the affidavit, but it has not been released.
So upsetting. Then, straight out to you, Jonathan Gilligan, former FBI special agent, you have the stark dichotomy of what appears to be very premeditated moves on the part of the alleged killer, Bryan Kohber. And this is what I'm talking about. Out of all the many, many times he's been coming over and casing that home, the murder home, where the victims lived, in the early morning hours when it's still dark, late at night, 12 times that we know of, all the way back to June. But this night, this one night of all nights, he cuts his cell phone off or puts it in airplane mode as he's driving from Moscow, driving from WSU to Moscow, and then en route back home, he flips it back on. That is cold, Jonathan.
Not only that, but when he came back to the house later, he didn't turn it off and he didn't commit a crime at that point, allegedly. So here's what you're seeing, Nancy. There are hard points throughout that timeline that we know that these particular things happen. We know that he left his house and his cell phone was last registered on a cell tower at 2:47. Then it immediately goes off. And then when the car that they spotted that was in the neighborhood leaves at 4:20 a.m., then the cell phone is turned on shortly after that and continues to register as it moves back towards his own home. So in between that time, and this is what leads a lot of credibility to that particular set of hard times, is that there's hard times throughout there. We know that DoorDash arrived at 4 a.m. They could validate that with a timestamp on a cell tower. We know that the car was in and around that neighborhood. We can validate that with cameras. And then we know that in a particular time within there that Zaina's phone went off of TikTok. Those are hard times throughout. And so when you compare and contrast that and look at the totality of those, what you see is that there's very definitive times in which this individual would have been there. There's evidence that the car was there, that he was heading there,
Right.
according to the cell phone towers, and then he was heading back from there. So these are very definitive hard points throughout that night.
I mean, to Chris McDonough, director of the Cold Case Foundation, former homicide detectives, worked over 300 homicides. Chris, the fact that at this particular moment, you know, the couple of hours of the murders, his cell phone is turned off and then gets cut back on, and they can see it traveling back from Moscow back to WSU.
Yeah, Nancy, I mean, this is to Jonathan's point, right? I mean, he goes off grid 2:47, he comes back on at 4:48 in the morning. And then we have these 12 other previous events where his phone pinged. What's interesting about those 12 other times is one of them was on August 21st, which is exactly 12 weeks to the day, it was a Sunday, of the homicides. So is this guy doing a pre-surveillance and he's thinking through?
Wow, 12 weeks, huh? He has a number, a thing with the 12 and 13 and the, what's going on? Because the times, 244s and the 256s and the, like, what's up with this guy here? And look at that. It's like a straight, damn. Fucking crazy. And then if you look too, look at the top left and the top right, his residence and the crime scene. Wonder if there's a way to get there from the other way. Wonder why he took that way. I don't know, man. This is weird. These times don't add up either. I'm going to talk about that.
How he's going to take advantage of all of the technology training that he has through his cloud-based forensics training. And then, 12 weeks later, he hits the target here. So it just, in my opinion, it goes towards, consciousness of guilt and malice aforethought.
Nancy, if I could interject, I do not think this is just surveillance. I think that many serial killers, and I do believe Bryan Kohberger this was the first of what he intended to be, a series of killings. He could happen to get caught the first time around. But there is a very strong sexual component to serial killing. Serial killers and psychopaths use the infliction of pain and harm in order to enhance their sexual arousal. So we may talk about him surveilling or casing the joint or trying to get ready for the crime, but I also think this was a part of a masturbatory fantasy. Serial killers are voyeuristic. I think he was like a peeping Tom. So we need to think of this entire crime as spanning when he began to use the word surveil or stalk, but he began to fuel his sexual fantasies by watching these young women.
And Nancy, can I say
Hey,
one
Nancy,
thing
I
about that?
gotta jump in here. I gotta jump in.
I think this goes all the way back to Pennsylvania, where there's evidence that he had these same behaviors at a brewery in Pennsylvania, where he was stalking women.
Hey guys,
asking
hold on.
strange
Jonathan, hold it
questions.
right there. We've got 2 seconds left. We'll pick it up after this. Stay with us.
And fast forward. Yeah, this timeline, I don't know. I'm going to have to go back and watch and listen to the part about the car when it was spotted by the manager at the gas station, and she gives the time, or somebody in the news or something gives the time about it speeding past. Ooh. Let's rewind. Whatchamacallit. Speeding past at 3:45. Leaving the direction. So was that not the same car, or are we getting a fake time of the murders and stuff right now because they couldn't release everything? I don't know. It just doesn't add up.
A completely different person.
Oh, and you're going to see this lady coming out of the house here shortly. It's not Brian's sister. Just take a look.
Though my eyes are lifted up, I feel a lot younger. I feel like I want to tell the world about this.
Guaranteed to work. No residue, no flaking, completely undetectable. Even cosmetic surgery can't promise results this good. And now, when you apply your makeup, you're starting with a much younger, smoother base. Imagine how much better you'll look. Looking young is fun. You should give it a try.
Damn, did I go
I
back
think this
really
is
far?
looking.
Bags.com for. Waste thousands on expensive hearing aids when you can get Nanos
Oh, I didn't know I went back that far.
779.
That is only $8.99. Save $2. Enter a big one.
Report on the Idaho student murders. You have sent me the best questions ever. I'm going to start going to them right now, but first to Laura Ingle, senior correspondent Fox News, with a lot of new information. Hit me, Laura.
Well, I spoke to a couple of people this weekend. We've heard reports that Bryan Kohberger was at a local bar in Pennsylvania in years past and in recent years of not being very kind to the female employees or customers. I spoke to the bar owner this weekend, last night. He talked to me about all the times that he came in, made his female employees and customers very uncomfortable. They had a system there where they scanned IDs at the door, and if an employee made a comment on somebody who came in and maybe caused some problems, they had kind of a record of it so that they could compare notes with other people that worked at the bar. And the comments that came up were saying, look, this guy is asking our female.
Yeah, I'm thinking he took that route and extra timing and stopped at the coffee shop and went to Albertsons and the whole nine that early that morning, and afternoon, because if you look at where the Albertsons is, there is a river like right there. And then the last time his phone pings that day is at like 5:36 or something, and it doesn't come back on until after 8. And that last ping is in Johnson, Washington. There's like a big, like, national forest.
Who they came with, where they live, when they're leaving. And finally, the bar owner went up to him and said, look, you're welcome to be here. You can have your beer, but please do not speak to our female customers and employees like that. And Ryan Koberger, he said to him, what do you mean? He seemed shocked, and he said, you must have me confused with someone else, had a beer, paid cash, and never came back again. But it certainly spooked a lot of people there who now realize who he was. I also spoke to the mother of one of his high school friends who talked about him coming over to their family home throughout high school, a very small group of friends, how they would bounce from house to.
Okay, everybody that knows this guy is from high school. Does anybody know him in college other than the guy dressed in all black out in the snow talking to one of the reporters? Is there anybody that knows this guy other than high school, like after high school, as he went to college? Because the one guy that used to do drugs with him was like, I didn't even know he was going to college. When I found out, I was like, well, he must have cleaned up. So, like, what happened to him after college? Like, nobody talked to him. He just stayed inside of his parents' home and then decided to go to college and then moved to Washington and murder 4 people. Like, I'm so confused.
Do all the normal teenage things, Xbox, PlayStation, watch movies. But then there was a point in high school, we've heard this story before, where he had been bullied, then he became the bullier, and he started actually bullying her son.
You know, according to a classmate of Koberger's at WSU, Washington State University, he intimated that he could go to, quote, pretty much any bar and be with any lady he wanted. You know, I highly doubt that, but all of this information is coming out about who Koberger really is. You know, I'm looking at your questions. One of them, do you think DM was in on the killings? I mean, just speculating. It took her 6 hours to call 911. Was she jealous of the other 3 girls? It's suspicious. Many ask, did they know each other? You know, he saw her. You know, I've been thinking about that a lot. And the layout of the home, Cheryl McCollum, I think it's entirely possible.
Okay, he could probably have definitely looked online and got the layout of the house. Could have definitely got whose rooms were who or which way to come in and all that by their TikToks, their post on Instagram. He didn't have to go to the house or be in the house in order to go in there and commit that. That is something I'm just going to say, because he's not dumb. Okay. He's dumb, but not dumb. All right. He's dumb because he left evidence and fucking cell phone things and just stupid shit. But you cannot sit here and say that this guy, if he was stalking them online, watching them from bars, following them, whatever. These girls had windows open. These girls had sliding glass doors open. These girls took photos on their porch upstairs. They took photos on the roof. Okay. If he was watching, he knew exactly where each one of them were that he wanted anyway. Okay. But did he know one of these victims by passings, bars, a restaurant, going in to get coffee? We do know Kaylee was the one that would serve you coffee in the morning, make that cup of coffee. I'm taking it she worked at a coffee shop. It hasn't been said that I know of, like from law enforcement or family, exactly where her job is, but I believe it was a coffee shop. And we know Xana and Maddie worked at Mad Greek. We know that they sell vegan food. A lot of people think his target was Xana. I'm not sure how they're getting that or what's making them think that. I feel more there is some type of connection with Kaylee, whether they went on a date, whether they talked online, whether he commented on a photo, a live video, a TikTok, whatever it may have been, and was turned down or ignored later, or the date didn't end well. We know Kaylee went on a date with a man that was not very nice. It hasn't been released. Chronicles from Olivia was supposed to be releasing it on the 5th. Due to editing and something, it's not out yet. So I believe the date was Brian, and that's why it hasn't been let out yet. But that's my opinion. And I do believe he knows one of them, probably Kaylee.
Possible that the roommate, one of the two that survived, she came out of her room 3 times and she kept hearing noises. And then she saw the alleged killer. She saw him go to the back sliding glass door. She shut her door and locked it. I wonder, Cheryl McCall, if she didn't just crack the door and was looking out, because the killer had to walk right by her door.
He did, Nancy, but let's go back a second. This killer enters on the 2nd floor through the sliding glass door. Why go to the 3rd floor at all? I believe, again, his targets were on the 3rd floor. He doesn't have to go up there. But Kaylee said she had a stalker. Her dad said she had a stalker. She wasn't supposed to be there. She was in a car that didn't even have a tag on it. The sheath was left there, which means that's when he first engaged that weapon, because he left it there. There's no blood on it.
And he heard shit downstairs and he left in a hurry and he ran into Xana, probably getting her food from Jack.
She hears him. She hears Xana talking. We know Xana was on TikTok at 4:12. He's seen fleeing in his car at 4:20. From 4:04 when his car first comes in and parks to 4:20 when he's fleeing. You're talking about 16 minutes, which is a lifetime when somebody's doing this amount of damage. But again, it's very targeted. He doesn't enter the 2nd floor and kill 2 people on the 2nd floor.
Nope.
He enters the 2nd floor and goes upstairs.
Okay, so I hope everybody was catching that, and I hope they caught that in the affidavit. Definitely didn't take 2 lives downstairs, put the knife back in the sleeve, whatever the heck it's called. I have a hard time with that dang word. I just call it a knife cover, okay? So he didn't downstairs on the 2nd floor, put it back in his thing, walk upstairs, retake it out, and leave it on the bed. No, it was when he originally first took it out. And Kaylee's dad did tell us a while back he did not have to go upstairs. So if you enter on the 2nd level, you're not familiar with the house, you don't know who's all in there, you're going for just those people on the 2nd level, you have no reason to go upstairs. He was met by people when he came downstairs. That's why the other 2 are attacked, is what I think, based off the information and what she just said. Girl, I can't say it. I can't. I'm just going to say cover.
I got my first glimpse of the mountains. I had to take
Sheep? Is that what it is? Sheep? Did I say it right?
You guys ready?
Did I say it right that time? So much faster, and you realize how much the show is not on. Do you know that when you record it? Jeez.
Include a bottle of jet.
And
Ay, Nikki, you're having a
I
hard
do.
time today with your remote, girl.
To my needs and preference. Online at lexihearing.com to receive your Lexi V2 hearing aids powered by Bose today.
or for more. Welcome back, everybody. I'm Nancy Grace.
I
Thanks for
did?
being with us for the special
Okay.
report on the
Sweet.
Idaho student
Thank you,
murders. We are taking your many questions from Trace. Is it true the suspect returned to the scene of the crime later that night? If so, why do you think he did? Yes, He did. The murders occurred between 4 and 4:30. He was only in the home around 16 minutes, which is kind of hard to take in, but absolutely possible. He returned that morning after 9 a.m. to either admire his handiwork, to see if the cops had.
Look how that cop's holding him too. It's like, by that shirt, it's like, you can walk your ass in there, boy. You know what I want to do to you.
To get that sheath
I heard a lot of
back
people
where he
saying that
unsheathed his
cop was
knife,
cute.
or to maybe
He's not cute.
silence a
Not to me.
witness. I'm going to go to the rest of your questions, but I want to go to Dr. Michelle Dupree, forensic pathologist, medical examiner, and author of the Homicide Investigation Field Guide. Dr. Dupree, thank you for being with us. Now, at first we heard Kelly Gonsalves' father say that he thought she was the original targeted victim because of specific gouges she had on her body, not just puncture wounds, but gouges that were much more severe than the other injuries to the other victims. But
And then that's another reason that I think that possibly he was there for Kaylee, which is hard to think about, because I'm like, she wasn't supposed to be there. She came to show the car. So like, he definitely had to have been watching if that's who his target was, because of the wounds being worse for her. But then I sit here and I go, well, maybe he came in and he attacked Maddie and she woke up and she tried to save her best friend and she was attacked worse because she was, fighting back.
the she was right beside Maddie. How do you, as a medical examiner, determine whether one of the victims is actually the target? Can you do that?
Sometimes you can, Nancy, but it is rather difficult. Oftentimes we see that the intended victim of the alleged killer is the one that receives the most egregious injuries, the deeper cuts, the more numerous cuts, but not always. And the placement of the sheath is certainly something that we would look at, but it doesn't necessarily mean that that was the first person that was attacked.
I'm thinking another question we have from Kay. What's the likelihood there's additional DNA in the house that was left out of the probable cause affidavit? My guess is there is a lot, Dr. Michelle Dupree. And also, why would there be blood on the walls, Dr. Dupree?
Well, Nancy, to answer your question, there probably is a lot more DNA at that crime scene. It was a very bloody crime scene. Most stab wounds or sharp force injuries do produce a lot of blood. And there would be blood on the walls depending on what parts of the person were injured. For example, if you cut an artery, there will be spurting blood that will likely go on the walls, on the floor, and on any other objects that are nearby.
Nancy, there's going to be more suspect DNA.
Go ahead.
There's going to be more suspect DNA because he held that victim in place. There's going to be DNA of his on their clothing. The reason there's also blood on the wall is called a cast-off pattern, where he was stabbing them repeatedly. That blood is flinging off that knife onto that wall. And that's how we can also sometimes determine the number of stab wounds, looking at the number of cast-off patterns around the walls.
There could also be semen at the
Excellent point, Cheryl. I want to talk about two unsung heroes. One is Officer Daniel Tiango. The other is Officer Curtis Whitman. One was working the graveyard shift. My dad used to have to work down on the railroad. And overnight, he went through the WSU car registration for all the students at WSU, including PhD students. And he comes up with a white Elantra. Then his buddy, Officer Curtis Whitman, who's out on the beat in the middle of the night, goes out and finds the Elantra. So to you, Jonathan Gilliam, we can talk about all the technology that is supporting the only direct evidence, which is the DNA, but this old school police work, that's the first time we hear the name Kohberger, the alleged, let me emphasize, alleged killer. That's the first time his name pops up in police documents, is after these two WSU, Washington State University cops, find that Elantra. What about that?
I think that's an excellent point you're making here, because a lot of people have been questioning at the speed at which this investigation unfolded. But you can look in that affidavit, you can look at what these two officers did, you can look at the DNA collection alone within that scene means that they stopped, they paused, and they were diligently investigating that. And I think throughout this entire thing, they have not been going at the pace of what the family and the general public was telling them that they should go. They were going at the pace that the evidence presented itself, and that evidence presented itself at the rate at which they investigated it diligently. And I think also, Nancy, it also shows how local, state, and federal agencies will come together and work as a task force. This is the FBI. This is the state police and the local police that we know, and I think this shows the best side of all of them.
And I think this is going to be the last part of it, guys.
Welcome back, everybody. I'm reading your questions. Patty, I agree with you. It was very confusing. At first, cops released information that the two surviving roommates were on the first floor. I'm now wondering if they did that because DM was actually on the second floor. It was a long time before the arrest.
They did do that because she was on the second floor, but also if you listened to the keywords and the things that were said and that weren't said, that chief stated early on that that she was a potential witness.
Went down. I don't think they wanted the alleged killer to know DM had seen him on the second floor. That only came out once he was arrested.
Yep.
Also, what is going to happen at trial? Do you think this is going to be another OJ? And did the parents know Kohberger would end up being a suspect? Well, I don't know. I mean, the car was parked right there in their driveway. They couldn't figure that out. I don't know. But let me go to Dr. Bethany Marshall. Everyone wants to know about a motive. Give it to me in a nutshell, Dr. Bethany. Possible motive.
Sociopaths have something called autonomic underarousal. That means that they don't experience anxiety, pleasure, heightened emotions like the rest of us. Because they have such low levels of emotional arousal, they cannot feel sexual excitement like normal people do either. So they maim, they kill, they inflict cruelty on others in order to achieve a sexual high. That's why I believe this was a sexually motivated crime. It's interesting that DM heard the killer say, "It's okay, I'm here to help you." That means that the killer not only had a sadistic sexual orientation, but also some kind of a God fantasy, just like the BTK.
But why was there no sexual assault? I'm confused. Why does she think that? Just because of what he said? We don't even know if that's him saying it. That could have been Ethan coming out of the room, seeing his girl not in the best condition and saying, "I'm going to help you." And then realizing he's possibly not because this creep and monster is still in the house.
Remember when he represented himself in court, he bragged to the jury and the judge that he comforted one of his victims before he strangled her.
Oh my
So
God.
the motivation is to feel all powerful over another human being.
Bottom line, I do not think the two roommates that survived were, quote, in on the killings. That's a common theme in the questions. But also lots of questions about how did he get to know them? How did he pick his targets? Straight up to Laura Ingle, have we heard any evidence regarding him meeting them at a coffee shop or a restaurant or at school? Anything at all yet?
Right now, there is absolutely nothing. In fact, I spoke to the family attorney for the Gonzalez family today, and they said they are still working on trying to find some kind of connection, any kind of connection. They have turned over, cell phone, all the cell phone information to the police, and they're just all still trying to find a connection.
She almost messed up right there, I think. Let's listen to
Well, they did that because DM was actually on the second floor. It was a long time before the arrest went down. I don't think that a suspect. Well, I don't know. I mean, the car was parked right there in their driveway. They couldn't figure that out. I don't know. But let me go to Dr. Bethany Marshall. Everyone wants to know about a motive. Give it to me in a nutshell, Dr. Bethany. Possible motive.
Sociopaths have something called autonomic underarousal. That means that they don't experience anxiety, pleasure, heightened emotions like the cruelty on others.
Yeah, that's not Brian's sister, guys, right there. That's in the black with the white shirt.
To achieve a sexual high. That's why I believe this was a sexually motivated crime. It's interesting that DM heard the killer say, "It's okay, I'm here to help you." That means that the killer, not jury and the judge, that he comforted one of his victims.
His targets. Straight up to Laura Ingle, have we heard any evidence regarding him meeting them at a coffee shop or a restaurant or at school? Anything at all yet?
Right now, there is absolutely nothing. In fact, I spoke to the family attorney for the Gonzalez family today, and they said they are still working on trying to find some kind of connection, any kind of connection. They have turned over, cell phone, all the cell phone information to the.
She was going to say cell phone something, maybe messages and stuff.
They're just all still trying to find a connection. Did they cross paths somewhere? And there's just not an answer on that, not right now.
Another issue is, what was he doing all the multiple times he kept going back and forth to the house, spying on him? To Brian Foley, jump in.
So I think there's going to be a lot more in this arrest warrant. I can't wait to see what else is in there. They had enough for a search warrant of the cell phone records a week before the DNA that they proved in there. So there's going to be a lot more to come here. The cops did an amazing job here. And him shutting his phone off, that's going to be used against him. They're going to look back. How many times has he shut his phone off before in this same pattern? So there's a lot more to come. Cops did a great job, and he was trying to
Hey, CeCe Moore, I've only got a few seconds left, CeCe. Do you predict there's going to be more DNA linking back to the alleged killer? Yes, no?
I do. I would not be surprised. We know that the eyewitness saw his eyebrows. So that means he was not totally covered. If his head wasn't covered, he could have also dropped hair. We can do a lot with hair today. So I would not be the slightest bit surprised if they have a lot more DNA and they just haven't revealed that yet.
Guys, I want to thank you for joining us tonight. There's so much.
All right. So I do. One second here. I do want to say, I was trying to clear that. And show him, Quentin Simon. It is his birthday today, guys. So think of him, say a prayer for him. It would have been his birthday today. I was just being sent some stuff. So just thought I would share. Happy birthday, Quentin. I hope you're having a beautiful one in heaven. All right, guys. Thanks for joining. And if you want to replay it, you can. And again, don't forget to subscribe if you haven't, and hit the thumbs up on the video so other people can see it if they haven't and they want to. And remember, what's done in the dark always comes to light. Have a good day. Love and light.